Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another PlayStation review. Today I'm taking a look at a classic PlayStation 4 game. This one came out back in 2014 and it is Sherlock Holmes Crimes and Punishments. Now, as I've said, this one came out over a decade ago now. I've always been a big fan of detective games. Sherlock Holmes is my favourite detective, so I'm always excited when a new Holmes game comes out on the PlayStation. And thankfully, they are coming out now fairly regular, and there is quite a few available to buy if you are a fan of detective games, especially Sherlock Holmes. Now, from memory, I think this was the first one to come out on console. I might be wrong on that. Certainly on the PlayStation 4 anyway. So I've played this one to death. I think I've played through this about 3 or 4 times now. And it's essentially an adventure game. It's developed by Frogwares. And it's an investigative, narrative-driven title that allows you to basically step into the shoes of the iconic Sherlock Holmes. He solves a series of complex and dark cases. Now, how many cases are there? There's 6 cases, which is, I think, a perfect amount for this game. Each case can feasibly take you a couple of hours to kind of solve. A little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the type of player that you are, I suppose, and how quick you are at solving the puzzles and solving the crimes. So it's structured around 6 cases. They've all got kind of a unique theme, but they all revolve around crime and justice, and they are inspired by the works of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, but they have taken some creative license with some of the stories. It does a really fantastic job of capturing the atmosphere of Victorian London. It's dark, it's moody, it's gritty, and it really does make the game interesting, and it does present players with a lot of moral dilemmas. As Sherlock Holmes, he can reach different conclusions about each case depending on how you interpret the evidence. And in most cases, in the cases in the game, you've got to decide between the law and what you personally feel is justice. So each case is kind of structured very similar in a sense of, you investigate, you find the clues, you try and solve the crime. And at the end, if you collected all the clues, it should give you a number of different conclusions that you can kind of come to. One, the game considers the correct one, but the other 2 are perfectly feasible as well, and you have to kind of choose what you think is the most feasible explanation. And you can either, completely condemn the person, or you can choose to kind of let them go, depending on how you feel about the crime they've committed, sort of thing. So it does feel grounded, I think, in the world of Sherlock Holmes. It's got a really fantastic mix of personal and professional stakes for the character of Sherlock Holmes. I do think the cases are brilliantly paced, and they've got some great plot twists and misdirections that can keep you guessing and engaged throughout. It does allow for multiple endings because of the branching narrative, if you like. So you can kind of replay it and choose different things, different outcomes, sort of thing. You can get 2 or 3 different endings for each case. So there is a level of replayability here. Out of the 6 cases, I would say there's 4 that I think are particularly strong, and I'm not going to say which they are because it's my personal opinion. But I do think they've all got their own merits, but I do think there's at least 4 of them that stand out in regards to being engaging. I mean, my personal favourite, if I'm honest, is the second one. It's the train one. I think it's called The Riddle of the Rails. I just think it's a really fun and cool one, and he's away from London in this one, investigating the case of a missing train. I've just always really liked that one. So the game focuses really heavily on investigation and deduction, and you control Holmes in a first person perspective, kind of traveling across different areas. You gather clues, you interact with characters, and you solve puzzles. Now, you can, if the puzzles are too hard for you, some of the puzzles you can kind of wait a few seconds, and it allows you to skip them, the puzzles. So you don't, if you're one of these that you don't like puzzling in games like this, it does give the option to skip, which is pretty good, I think. It's got the Mind Palace kind of game mechanic here, which has become quite synonymous with modern Sherlock Holmes, especially, you know, the Benedict Cumberbatch thing and what have you. It really focuses heavily on his Mind Palace. And essentially, it's all the clues that you collect in the game. You can kind of link them together and come to conclusions in your mind, sort of thing. It's a really cool mechanic, and it allows you to link all them clues together. It's a fun mechanic, the Mind Palace. It can sometimes be a little bit challenging. Again, it gives you a few different options for you to determine which is the right one, or what you feel is the right clue. It's not brilliant sometimes at providing guidance. You might, first time you play through this, you might be kind of wandering around thinking, I don't know what I'm doing here, I don't know what's next, what should I be looking for now? And it is really a case of scouring the area and looking for clues, checking your notebook, because sometimes it'll give you a piece of evidence and then it'll have like a clue on it saying that this means there's a dialogue option, or this means you've got to do a bit of research in your archives. The clues are there. You just need to know where to look in regards to what to do next, sort of thing. And it's, if you've played these Sherlock Holmes games before, especially these ones, and Devil's Daughter, and Testament of Sherlock Holmes and stuff, then they all follow a very similar structure. So you'll kind of take to it fairly quickly, especially if you're used to detective games. The game looks solid for a PlayStation 4 game. It's got a unique look about it. It's not extraordinary by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's got a realistic visual style, and it does capture the mood of Victorian London, and everything is really well detailed. It's not an open world or anything like that. You kind of have to travel to each location, and it gives you like a cutscene of Sherlock Holmes in his horse and carriage with Watson, sort of thing. So they have experimented with open world Sherlock Holmes games, and I think it loses something there, because I'm not personally not really that interested in an open world Sherlock Holmes game. I want to solve cases, so take me to the sites, the crime scenes and stuff, and let me investigate. I'm not that worried about running around the streets. By today's standards, though, I think it's fair to say it's starting to look a little bit dated, but it's not meant to be a graphical powerhouse, this game. It's meant to be functional and fun to play, and it is definitely that. And as you can see, it's certainly no slouch, I don't think, in the graphics departments. It's got brilliant high quality voice acting that really does enhance the storytelling. Personally, this is my favourite version of Sherlock Holmes in the gaming sense. The voice acting here is absolutely top notch. It's got a strong atmospheric soundtrack that really does complement the game, in my opinion. And it's got good, cool sound effects as well, and some, graphic images that really immerse you into the game. There are some audio issues here and there in regards to performance, but nothing too bad. Nothing that, is game breaking or anything like that. And as I've said, the puzzles that you get in this game are varied and range from logical deduction, pattern recognition, to physical manipulation of objects and stuff, like unlocking stuff. And again, you can skip these if you want, so it's not that. It's not a game breaker if you're not into that. And I'm personally not into puzzle solving, so I don't mind skipping some of these sometimes in these games, because I want to get back to the crux of the game, which is basically being Sherlock Holmes and solving cases. So In regards to pros for this game, brilliant narrative and moral choices, great voice acting and atmospheric music, and it's got brilliant and intelligent investigations. In regards to things that aren't so brilliant, some of the puzzles can feel difficult, if you like. Occasional graphical stiffness now and again. And I suppose the world could be a little bit more interactive, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a detective game. I think this is a solid Sherlock Holmes game. Outstanding in a lot of ways. One of my personal favourites, and that's why I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. An absolute classic detective game and one to play if you've never played this one before. So thank you very much for watching.